even as architecture appears to be redundant as its market share shrinks, anyone who reads a newspaper can tell you that there's actually never been more need for design thinking. Over the next few decades, design is going to be absolutely at the core of how we as a society deal with issues like resource scarcity, climate change, social inequality, cultural identity, new forms of manufacturing and production, and the social effects of those things. Essentially, what's going to happen is a weird kind of industrial revolution. That's an incredible market for design. It's out there waiting for us. It's a kind of form of design market which is not hung up on the assumption that architects design new buildings, and that's the only thing to which design's intelligence can be applied. So it's design applied not specifically to schools, but to education, not to hospitals, but to health. That is architecture's next social economy, and architecture schools are not yet preparing their students to build it. And here's the cheat. So this is just, hopefully there's a few of them now going to emerge in the audience. This is just a bunch of suggestions and a few ideas that Tatiana Schneider and Sam Brown and I about a month ago put out there for a few ideas of how architecture schools might begin to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to the four ranters just now. We're just going to take a 5-minute break for you all to absorb what's been said and to gather your thoughts. And if any one of you are a bit of a social butterfly, then it gives you a chance to network with other people as well. There is a bar outside, so please feel free to use it. Yes, we'll see you in 5 minutes. Well, we're going to start the second part of the evening, which is the introducing 4 suggesters. First up is the news reporter for the Architects Journal. He's also an artist and writer, and what's special about him is that he's not from an architecture background. He actually read modern history at the University of Oxford. Please welcome to the box, Merlin Fulcher.
Any person or thing under threat is forced to fight for its survival, and architecture is no different. As we know, architecture education is facing manifold specific and general threats, the most important are financial, social and political. Under such pressure, one focuses on what it is one fights for to survive. What elements of architectural education must we seek to carry on? Is it the courage to dream and the sacrifices made to be professional, or is it the system, the institutions, staff and the student body? To answer this, we should ask what it is that the study of architecture aspires to be. An academic dialogue, a public service, an intellectual pursuit, or a personal endeavour. We must consider what we have stood for in the past and think critically about what we should stand for in the future. A practical way to answer this question is to look at our strengths and weaknesses. So, our strengths, architectural education is challenging, rigorous, imaginative, passionate and indispensable to the profession. But our weaknesses, architecture education is also expensive, very time-consuming, sometimes narrowly focused, and most disturbingly, available to too few people of diverse backgrounds and economic means. We should turn to our partners and ask who stands most to lose if architectural education fails. Architectural practice, I would argue, and ask who stands most to lose if architectural education fails. Architectural practice, I would argue, therefore has an important role in meeting our aspirations halfway. What is most encouraging about this evening is seeing architectural education find meaningful association with protest movements. A voice is crucial to weather change. However, unlike the protests at St Paul's, we should consider carefully who this voice speaks to and who the Charter is aimed at. Will our concerns most profitably be addressed to government, society, the RIBA, our tutors, our peers, or our profession? Perhaps it is in the latter that we can find our strongest and most meaningful ally. That should be our charter. To petition practices to engage in formal patronage of scholarships, fellowships, teaching posts, courses, and a potential even entire schools. Already companies like KPF, Foster & Partners, Adam Architecture and 3D Reed invest in support for architecture students and treat this as an important part of their recruitment and marketing budgets. This also happens informally with school practices and tutors teaching at schools. so perhaps they could get more involved as well. Could this ensure the survival of the most valued parts of architecture education? I've come here today from a meeting called the AJ100, which is the UK's largest architectural practices. We met in Manchester this afternoon. David Pringle, who's the director of NOMA, which is a very important client, they're revamping the Centre of Greater Manchester. He said that innovation and education were vital to the success of architecture in the future. Only with the help of people in this room can the AJ100 practices and big architects satisfy such a challenge.
The second of our suggestors is the founder of the Association of Part 2 Architects, or otherwise known as TAPTA. He set it up really to provide a platform to promote the professional skills of those who have gained postgraduate qualification in architecture but are not eligible or decide not to enrol with the ARB in the UK. Please welcome to the platform Paul McGrath.
There's only 15, so take one, only if you need it. I'm going to whiz through 2 minutes because it's a very complicated argument. My name is Paul McGrath. I am 52 years old. I failed Part 3. I only have Part 2, but I'm very, very happy I've got it. Why am I happy I've got it? Because I got it virtually for nothing. Now, I want to project myself 10 years ahead when all these fees are going to come down on us, and I would have invested for my same situation in 10 years' time approximately £80,000 to achieve the Part 2 qualification. And my point is that the Part 2 qualification must be seen as a destination in its own right. Because of that fact, the investment of £80,000. Now, I want to put that into the context of Europe and what Europe means to a British education system. And my starting point is the directive that we all operate under in the education system. And the directive, issued by the European Commission, sets out the definition of an architect. And there it is. It has a number of points, and that sets out the definition of an architect. At the back, it also sets out every course in the UK, but it does not mention Part 3. Now, I want to try and put the context of Part 3 into the anomaly of Europe and what it means to study and qualify as an architect in Europe, as opposed to what it means to study and qualify as an architect in the United Kingdom. Because that defines an architect. Where do we get the definition of an architect in the United Kingdom? Is it in the Architects Act? No, it certainly isn't. There's no mention of Part 3 in there either. So where do we find Part 3? The Architects Act gives the ARB the power to make rules, and there are the ARB's rules. And in these rules, it says you have to have prescribed qualifications. And you go through the rules and try to find the qualifications, and where are they? Where's Part 3? It doesn't mention it until you get to Schedule 2 at the back, and that's where you find where Part 3 should be listed, but it's not there in the rules. You have to go to the website to find it, and there are the list of all the degrees and diplomas in the UK, which are also listed in the European Directive. So where is Part 3? It's tacked on here into Schedule 2 of the RIBA's rules. And that is the only justification for imposing Part 3 in the UK. Now, what I want to describe now is, on the one hand, you have Europe and the definition of an architect, and over here, you've got the ARB's interpretation of Part 3. Now, in good law, you would imagine that these meet together and are one and the